and that is it. And so yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That is the copy. That's the part that I'm gonna edit and stuff. And the cool thing about that is I didn't see myself because I'm reading the teleprompter and I'm using the same screen that the OBS is on. So I have no idea how that worked out. I am pretty sure that I went a little fast because I'm like looking down. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it, I think, because I'm one take Jake like Jay-Z. Editor Dante here, and welcome to the first episode of Unqualified with Republic Defender 78. He did do all this in one take, and I tried my best to put it together for a show. We'll get him next time. Welcome to the very first episode of my latest attempt at saving the world without going outside. I'm the Republic Defender 78 and I'm unqualified. I'm technically a few things. I used to be a professional content creator as the head writer for a website called craveonline.com. After that, I had a few bylines as a freelance writer. I hope to start a creative career, and a long story short, filled with sighs, I went pro in something else. However, the creative bug is such that I became a YouTube Twitch hobbyist. I don't post reviews, and compared to other serious content creators, I'm more akin to a kid playing news reporter. However, long before I became a writer, I was a kid in school trying to figure out my future and found out that argumentation and debate fulfilled an early college requirement. Argumentation and debate, or speech and debate, exposed me to the reality of national and international politics. My coach, Dr. Mark Crossman, who literally looked like Alexander Hamilton way before Lin-Manuel Miranda ever started dropping bars and forever screwing up who we think of when we think of Alexander Hamilton, once said essentially that more so than power, knowledge creates a responsibility that you can't ever come back from. I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while, but I feel like if my first African American history club in high school didn't do it, I definitely got woke when I joined the debate team. I literally don't have time to talk about being an illustrator and drawing comics and stuff. Suffice to say that even if my career was non-existent, I had a ton of hobbies to keep me busy while I tried to figure out how a 401k works. Tonight's episode being recorded from the emotional safety of my Super Earth Star Destroyer, the Sentinel of the Stars. I have leaned heavy into this Helldivers thing a bit hard. I promise I don't make the voices. Our first segment tonight will introduce you to my podcast partner and rogue AI Nova. He has seen some upgrades and I'm ready to take him back into the field for an informational hell dive. Now, despite his upgrades, Nova still needs to be fact checked. So, whatever we get, we'll go over and verify on ship. Fellow Helldiver Debate Sensei joins on this commando mission that should allow us to gather some intel on the SAVE Act. Okay, mic check, Nova, you there?
Right here and ready. Loud and clear. Let's keep it going.
Great. I need you to find all the information you have on the SAVE Act.
I'm not entirely sure which SED Act you're referring to. If you can give me a bit more context, like what field it's in or what it relates to, I'll be able to help much better.
The SAVE Act. SAVE.
Is a bill passed by the U.S. House that would require proof of citizenship like a passport or birth certificate when registering to vote in federal elections. Critics say millions of citizens could face barriers if they lack these documents. The bill now heads to the Senate, where it would need 60 votes to pass, and many see it as a significant change to voter registration.
And what is the history of the SAVE Act?
The SAVE Act, introduced in 2025, aims to require proof of citizenship, like a passport or birth certificate, to register to vote in federal elections. Initially passed by the House in 2025, it was reintroduced in 2026 as the Save America Act, adding voter ID rules. The House passed the updated version in February 2026, and now it faces a difficult path in the Senate due to the 60-vote threshold. Critics argue it could disenfranchise millions, while supporters say it protects election integrity.
Can you go in detail in terms of what it means to disenfranchise voters?
When people say a law might disenfranchise voters, they mean it could make it harder or impossible for eligible people to vote. In the case of the SAVE Act, if someone doesn't have a passport, birth certificate, or similar proof of citizenship readily available, they might be unable to register. Certain groups like older adults, low-income citizens, or natural-born citizens who never needed these documents could be disproportionately affected. Essentially, it raises barriers to voting, even for people who are fully eligible.
And you said that it was unlikely to pass. What are the current stakes for the SAVE Act?
As of February 2026, the House narrowly passed the Save America Act, requiring proof of citizenship and a national photo ID to vote in federal elections. However, it faces an uphill battle in the Senate, where 60 votes are needed to overcome a filibuster. Many warn that millions of Americans lacking documents could be affected, while supporters argue it strengthens election integrity. The bill's fate and potential legal challenges remain uncertain.
Who was the actual creator of the SAVE Act?
The SAVE Act, which stands for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, was created by Representative Chip Roy from Texas, who introduced it in early 2025. Senator Mike Lee from Utah introduced a companion bill in the Senate. The legislation aims to require proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections.
Can you provide information? Okay, so let me rephrase that. There are concerns from critics about disenfranchisement, and you explained what that means. What specifically will the act do that will disenfranchise voters?
The act mandates that to register to vote in federal elections, you must provide proof of citizenship, like a passport, birth certificate, or similar documents at the time of registration. Many eligible voters may not have these documents readily available, especially older citizens, natural-born citizens who never needed them, or people who lack easy access to the documents. If they can't provide the required proof, they'll be blocked from registering, even though they're citizens, thus losing their ability to vote.
Can you explain what a poll tax is? I need to create some context.
A poll tax is a fee that people had to pay in order to vote. Historically, it was used in the U.S., especially in the South, to disenfranchise poor and minority voters, mostly Black Americans. Even though voting is a fundamental right, poll taxes acted as financial barriers, preventing those who couldn't afford the fee from casting their ballots. Poll taxes were eventually outlawed by the 24th Amendment and later court decisions. In short, they tied voting to the ability to pay, which is why they're seen as discriminatory.
I have a critic that has said that the modern day SAVE Act is a form of poll tax. Can you explain exactly what they mean?
The critic is drawing a comparison, not saying there's an actual monetary fee, but a barrier that functions similarly. In their view, requiring documents like a passport or birth certificate to prove citizenship imposes a cost, whether in money, time, or effort, to obtain and present them. Some people might need to pay for replacements, travel to offices, or overcome logistical hurdles. barriers that disproportionately affect poorer or marginalized groups. So they see it as a modern poll tax, not in dollars, but in practical barriers that can exclude people from voting.
And you said that poll tax is illegal, so is that a constitutional violation?
A literal poll tax charging money to vote is unconstitutional under the 24th Amendment. However, the SAVE Act's requirements aren't directly monetary. The question of constitutionality here would be whether the proof of citizenship requirement places an undue burden on voting rights. Courts would have to decide if these barriers amount to a violation of equal protection or the Voting Rights Act. So it's not automatically a constitutional violation. It would likely face legal challenges to determine that.
Can you check to see if there is any record of a court battle being prepared?
The Save America Act, which requires proof of citizenship for voter registration, passed the House but faces major obstacles in the Senate. Courts previously blocked a similar executive order in 2025, saying only Congress could impose such rules. While no current court battle is active for the 2026 version, legal challenges are expected if it progresses, with arguments that it burdens voting rights and infringes on states' authority.
Okay. I'm trying to prepare a report. Is there any information that American voters should know concerning how the SAVE Act will affect them in the upcoming midterm elections?
The Save America Act, which would require proof of citizenship and photo ID to vote, has passed the House but still faces major hurdles in the Senate. If it somehow became law before the 2026 midterm, it could require states to quickly overhaul voter registration processes. Critics warn this could affect millions of voters who lack documents, potentially influencing turnout. For now, though, it's not law, and any impact remains uncertain.
What forms of ID will the act require?
The SAVE Act would require two types of documentation. First, proof of citizenship, like a birth certificate, passport, or naturalization certificate when registering to vote. Second, it would require presenting a government-issued photo ID, such as a driver's license or state ID, when actually voting. States would have to ensure these IDs are provided free of charge to avoid legal challenges, but obtaining underlying documents could still be a hurdle for some. These layers aim to verify eligibility, but may also complicate access for certain voters.
Currently, a passport is not free. Does the SAVE Act have any provision that would change that?
No, the SAVE Act doesn't provide free passports or birth certificates. It mandates states provide free photo IDs, but it doesn't eliminate costs for underlying citizenship documents. Critics argue that for some people, obtaining these documents can be costly or difficult, which is part of the disenfranchisement concern.
Are there any states that would need to dramatically overhaul their ID or passport availability because of the SAVE Act?
Currently, only a handful of states have laws that require proof of citizenship to register to vote, such as Alabama, Arizona, and Wyoming, though enforcement varies. Most states, around 42, do not require documentation. The federal form currently allows registration without proof of citizenship, but if the SAVE Act were passed, states without such systems would need to make major adjustments.
Okay, we're getting close to all the information that I can think of for this particular topic. There was something else though. Okay, I need to help people understand the fact that, like, it doesn't matter what states you're in, for various reasons, this will have an impact on you. Can you explain the differences in impact for people living in red states versus blue states?
In traditionally red states, which often already have stricter voting laws, such as voter ID rules, implementing the SAVE Act might be seen as an extension of existing practices. However, even in red states, many citizens, especially rural or lower income voters, may struggle to get the required documents. In blue states, where voter access is often more expansive, the impact would be more drastic. These states might have to implement new systems, and voters accustomed to fewer restrictions could face confusion or new hurdles. In short, while the type of change differs, both red and blue states will see significant shifts, potentially disrupting voters' routines in different ways.
For all the information that we've gathered so far, if the goal was to provide important information for prospective voters, is there anything we missed?
I think we've covered the core essentials: what the act proposes, how it might impact voters, the legal context, and the concerns. If anything, you could briefly note that ongoing public debate or court challenges could shape the final outcome. But in terms of what voters need to know, you've got a solid foundation. Just keep an eye on any developments.
Okay, well, thanks, Nova. I'm going to cut this here so we can get off planet, and then we're going to go through all this information for accuracy. But okay, so that is done. So now we got to reset and do the fact checking, and I have a whole different screen for that.
You can put up the stuff on.
Yes, I'm gonna have to edit out the part where you asked me to put away leftovers from dinner.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna use all of this stuff as outtakes, because I'm outtake Jake, like Jacob. That to me, if the goal is to make a video that explains the SAVE Act in a space where people who may not hear this information might hear it, I think I will have covered all my bases. That's it. So let's parse through what Nova pulled up for us. So the first segment that we first dropped in, I wanted Nova to just define the SAVE Act. All right, here we go.
The House has officially passed the GOP's Save America Act. The act would require government-mandated proof of citizenship, such as passports or birth certificates, to register to vote. It would also require states to remove non-citizens from existing voter rolls. Supporters of the bill say it would protect election integrity and crack down on non-citizen voting, while opponents argue the bill would make registering harder for millions of voters. So the Constitution already prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal and state elections, and state election boards say instances of non-citizen voting are rare. The bill now heads over to the Senate, where it faces a potential filibuster from the Democrats. So let's bring in ABC News legal contributor James Sample for more on this. So James, your thoughts on this bill?
Perry, you laid it out very well. This is a bill that would dramatically change the role of the federal government in the administration of federal elections. Even though federal elections are, by definition, for federal office, they are administered primarily at the state level, and that is a function of Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution, which the framers of the Constitution made very clear gives the states the primary responsibility for administering elections and gives the federal government only a small backup role. But this would dramatically shift that balance if it were to become law. And it would, most importantly and most immediately, pose significant barriers for individuals, many individuals who are already U.S. citizens, who've in many cases voted many times properly, because they would have to obtain not just identification, but identification that in many instances would require them to show a passport or a birth certificate establishing U.S. citizenship. Now, for many Americans, most Americans even, that is not a significant hardship, but for a significant percentage of Americans. That would be a hardship that would prevent them from voting. Numbers are estimated around 21 million. The question becomes, is that cost, disenfranchising at least a significant fraction of 21 million Americans, worth the benefit of preventing non-citizens from voting when we know from study after study that there are only a small, and we're talking single digits per election year, number of non-citizens who actually cast a vote?
So it seems like that these are some major impacts this bill could have on voters.
Oh, there's no doubt that if this bill were to pass through the Senate, and to be clear, I think that's unlikely at the moment, but if the majority leader in the Senate, John Thune, elects to do away with the filibuster, then this bill could, that was the so-called nuclear option, then this bill would pass the Senate and it would go to the president and it would have a dramatic impact, and it would be an immediate impact in the 2026 midterms. There would be, in many instances, chaos because of the transition period. We think about November as being a long way away. From the standpoint of election administration, it's effectively tomorrow. This would be an upheaval of historic proportion.
So if this bill does become law, what kind of legal challenges could we see?
You will see legal challenges from the states who will argue that this is a violation of that constitutional provision that I referenced before, Article 1, Section 4, saying that they have the primary responsibility to cover the time, place, and manner. That's the language in the Constitution. They would also argue the 10th Amendment, that this is an intrusion on federalism. And what's fascinating is that this is a bit of a juxtaposition. Normally, it is Democrats in Congress trying to pass legislation that prevents discriminatory practices, such as passing the Voting Rights Act in federal elections. This would be a significant shift. There would also be challenges from individual voters who would face the possibility of being disenfranchised.
And then Republicans are introducing another bill, the Make Elections Great Again Act. It would ban universal mail-in voting, among other restrictions. How would these proposals change federal involvement in elections?
Well, first, I think it's worth the two of us acknowledging the clever naming devices of all of these bills. I mean, Americans for Apple Pie sounds very good, but Make Elections Great Again, that act is actually more severe, more extreme than the Save America Act is, in the sense that it would mandate that states undertake monthly purges of their voter rolls. And the problem with that, it sounds innocuous on its face, but one thing that we have learned in study after study is that databases of names are rife with errors, and the matching problem, somebody uses a middle initial, somebody uses a married name, a maiden name, these things are very difficult and it would cause chaos for sure.
James Sample, thank you.
ABC News, thank you. Okay, so that's some gloom and doom. Thanks, Nova, for that shit. Damn. So basically, apologies. Okay, let's see here. So now we're in January 3rd, 2025. I still have questions now because that means the last entry it was received in the Senate. Oh.
No worries.
So are we talking about it now because it's reaching a certain deadline?
Exactly. When a bill hits the Senate, that's a major step, but not the end. It might be under discussion now because it's facing a critical moment, like committee hearings, a potential floor vote, or approaching a legislative deadline. Basically, it's now at that stage where its fate, whether it passes, stalls, or gets revised, is in the hands of the Senate.
Okay, so we're going to follow this pathway because it doesn't exactly explain the timing. Okay, so it was first introduced into the House on January 3rd, 2025, and it was referred to the House Committee on House Administration on January 3rd. What does that mean?
When a bill is referred to a committee, that's like sending it to a group of lawmakers who specialize in that area. The House Committee on House Administration deals with things like election laws and congressional procedures. So when it lands there, the committee reviews, debates, and can amend it. It's like the bill's first test. It needs to pass out of committee before going to the full House.
Understood. Okay. So it looks like it was sent to
Feel free
the House. it looks like it was into the House Rules Committee. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The Rules Committee is like the traffic controller for legislation. Once a bill is ready, they set the terms for debate, how long it can be discussed, what amendments are allowed, before it goes to the full House floor. So if it went to rules, that means it was on its way to broader consideration.
Okay. Now, from what this is showing, it took about 3 months before it got to the House Rules Committee on the 7th of April. Okay, so I'm looking at a post that says Rules Committee Resolution H Resolution 294 reported to House. Rule provides for consideration of SJ Resolution 18, SJ Resolution 28, HR 1526, and HR 22, which is, I believe, our bill. The resolution provides for consideration of HR 22, HR 1526, SJ Resolution 18, and SJ Resolution 28 under a closed rule. The resolution provides for 1 hour debate on each measure and on one motion to commit on HR 22 and HR 1526, and one motion to commit on SJ Resolution 18 and SJ Resolution 28. Can you break that into plain English? Did they simply disseminate the bills to be debated on the House floor that day?
Exactly. The Rules Committee set the rules of the game. A closed rule means no new amendments can be offered on the floor, just straight debate and a vote. Each bill got 1 hour of debate time. A motion to commit is a last-ditch move. Someone can send the bill back to committee for changes. In short, the committee set up a structured plan for these bills, including yours, to be debated and voted on by the full House.
So we can read through this directly because I see that on the 10th at 9:19 a.m., they did debate HR 22 on the House floor. So that was April 10th, 2025. Can we establish some kind of understanding of why now? What triggered the push to the House now or around this time in February 2026?
The debate on HR 22 happened on April 10, 2025, after the House set rules for 1 hour of debate and limited procedural motions. The House ultimately passed the bill with a vote of 220 to 208 and then was sent to the Senate. The timing was driven by the procedural schedule set earlier in April, allowing the bill to move forward in the legislative process.
Where does the public push by the president and the White House come from? Why now?
The SAVE Act, first passed by the House in April 2025 and updated as the Save America Act in February 2026, requires proof of citizenship and photo ID to vote in federal elections. The White House originally opposed it, but former President Trump later endorsed it in 2026. Although the House passed it again, the bill faces an uphill battle in the Senate, and without Senate approval, it cannot become law. If it did pass, states would need to rapidly implement these requirements.
I feel like I'm missing a contextual link. What do you got there? Okay.
It's easy to feel that way. The context is often political timing. Issues like voting laws become key talking points, especially near election cycles. The White House, Congress, or public pressure often line up around big legislative pushes. So when you see a push in early 2026, it might be tied to upcoming elections or political momentum. It's often less about one specific trigger and more about the broader political landscape.
Understood. I would still like some dates. So can you check the president's Truth Social post?
On February 11th, 2026, former President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social endorsing the Save America Act. He called on Republicans to support the bill and argued that U.S. elections had become rigged and a laughingstock. This endorsement was part of the broader push around the legislation's progression.
What made you say he was the former president?
Good catch. I assume that based on the timeline of events we've been discussing, since we're talking about 2026. If I've misjudged context, feel free to clarify, but I'm always happy to adjust based on your scenario.
No, you're fine. That's just we're gonna use that later. So that is the end of our episode. Please like and subscribe. My goal is to provide some context to the information we find so that people who come across it feel like maybe they should find out more. The SAVE Act is something that is yet another attack on the American people and their way of life. Like it or not, the whole world is watching because that's how high the stakes are. I would like to talk to you all night about Helldivers 2, Star Wars, Rick and Morty, Spider-Man, Scrubs coming back, Scrubs! But all that is something we can't afford to let distract us any longer. It has to be the reward for a job well done. We have to do our part to earn our fun, not use our fun to ignore the reality of the world around us, because the world won't wait. The reason the SAVE Act has arrived on our doorstep, threatening to take our rights away, is because all the efforts the rich and powerful have made to make the Epstein files go away are seeming to have failed. While they do have the government crippled and are on the ropes, they haven't killed it yet because they haven't killed us. Peter Thiel and his drug-addled haze forgot that the government is nothing but us, the people. You can corrupt how we staff the government, turn it into a pay-to-play money scheme, but everything you do is because the truth is still there. You still have to answer to the government, the people. You can spend billions attempting to demonize paying attention to the shit you do, but that will only work for a time. I'm banking that people remember that they are the government. Get their shit together and get you and Trump and your pet couch banger, collar your ghoul Stephen Miller, and go straight to jail without passing go. I'll be back next week to see if I can convince a few more people to think so too. Thanks.